Well, good day to you. I say good day because it's going to be noon in about 12 seconds. Having went from good morning, good afternoon, it's good day right now. I am so glad that you are here today as we jump into our next Lunch and Learn. And I was kind of thinking, how should I introduce Ray Williams? And the first thing that came to mind was Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, not because that has anything to do with Ray, but because Ray is from the neighborhood. Ray is overseas. He is renewed Christian counseling. Ray Williams, as his office is right across the street from us, and so on different times when we've interacted together, I said, you know what, I'll just come across the street. And so welcome to the neighborhood. Glad that Ray is in the neighborhood. And he's here with us today to talk about raising kids to manage their feelings in a jungle of emotional triggers. Now, just that title will grab you for all kinds of different reasons. But before we get to that, I want to highlight just a couple of our other Lunch and Learns that are coming up. You've got a schedule here in front of you. But in July, a surprising gift for your marriage. Jim and Stephanie Teal are overseeing our Re-Engage ministry, and I would encourage you to come and pick up a special gift for your marriage from Jim and Stephanie Teal, and not only their story, but how God has been using them in that ministry. So come and invite a friend to that one. In August, When Your World Crumbles, Hope for Sufferers. And Jenny Caterer, you may not know the name, unless you know Brian Schulenberg. And Brian Schulenberg, Jenny, is Brian's sister. And Jenny has been battling cancer for the last several years. During that time, their first and only child at this point was born. And when the diagnosis looked good or well, and in the middle of that were all the things that she's been dealing with in raising a child, but raising a child in the middle of a bad report, and yet God has been so faithful to them. And she's going to be sharing her story. She is a living, moving, walking, breathing answer to prayer, and just life experiences to share together with us. So that's the first Lunch and Learn in August. Todd Mulliken will be with us for knowing the difference between passive assertive and passive aggressive communication. See, I got your attention. That's what that whole session is about. Todd's going to be sharing with us. And then the 22nd of August, somebody's going to be talking about bringing more joy into your life and just experiencing the joy of the Lord every day. And that person would be me. And so look forward to you being with us on that day in August as well. But today, we get to learn about raising kids to manage their feelings in a jungle of emotional triggers. And so grateful to have met Ray, and not only to meet him, but to know of his ministry, his experiences, his love for Christ, his love for others, and grateful he's with us today. So Ray Williams, come on up, neighbor. And thanks for not wearing a cardigan today. It would have been a little warm.
I'm going to change my shoes.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys. It's good to be here. This is really cool. Yes. So, we're going to talk about raising kids. We're going to talk about feelings. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's what we're going to do. Before we get going, I'm going to pray, because I'm the one that can screw this up the most right now, because I've got the microphone and we need God to speak, not me. So, Father, I just thank you so much. You are the most amazing. And you are the perfect parent. You're the perfect father. And we're just trying to be more like you. We're just trying to be more like your son. We just want to invest in these kids in a way that you would have us invest in them. And I just ask that you'd speak today. Give everybody here whatever they need, whatever they're hurting for, whatever they need to get some care, they need some wisdom, whatever it is that they need. I pray that you'd give that to them. And I pray that I wouldn't hinder any of that, and that your wisdom would come through. And all these things I pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, so yes, managing kids' feelings, teaching them how to manage their own. So I am a therapist, but this is the more important part of my life. See if it works now. Oh, there we go. Mic better like that? Okay. I don't usually hold one of these. I usually am able to yell at my kids without one. So this is my family. This is the kind of the reason why I do things. We've got, my wife and I have been married 28 years. We've got 4 adult kids in various stages of launch. And we've been at Grace Church here in Eden Prairie for over 30 years. So long before we actually horned in on Wooddale's territory, which hopefully we didn't burn any bridges, but I think we work well together. So, and then we have a new addition to the family because I told my daughter, this is my daughter's puppy that is now living with us. This is Destiny. Destiny is 3 months old, and she's adorable. And I put it in there because everybody likes a picture of a puppy, right? You can't go wrong with that. I bear the marks of love because Destiny's going through kind of a biting phase. So I have marks of love all over my body. They're not love of Destiny. They're my love for her because she's still living in our house. She would be out if I didn't love her because I don't like getting bit. But that's kind of what parenting's like, right? We have these kids and they hurt us. They don't intend to hurt us. Destiny is not trying to hurt me. But she's going through this biting phase and she feels the need to bite. And we have to endure that, right? So that's kind of parenting in a nutshell. So that's kind of who I am and the family. And now we're going to talk about emotions. So what are emotions? Have you ever thought about what exactly are emotions, right? So here's two pieces of emotions. They're kind of our internal reaction or response to the external environment, right? So we're walking down a dark street, we feel fear, something like that. That's an internal response to what's going on outside of us, right? It's also can be used as an indicator of an unmet need. I think a good example of that is, for a person that feels lonely, we want to, you can feel loneliness, and it's an indicator that maybe you need to have some more friends, or you need to get out and see your friends more often, right? So our emotions tell us things. They're not bad. They're kind of neutral things. And I'm going to give you a little bit of basic information about emotions real quick. We have thoughts, we have feelings, and we have actions, and they all kind of go in a cycle. They go both ways. So you can have a thought right now that will lead to a feeling of anger. You could think about something that would make you mad, right? You could think about something that would make you sad. You can have a thought that leads to an action. You can think, man, I need to get a drink, and you can get up and go get a drink, right? You can have feelings that lead to thoughts, because once we get into a certain state, if we're angry, how many of you have found that if you're angry, you can come up with more reasons to be angry? You have more of those thoughts? You ever notice that? That's because that state of anger, that feeling kind of gives us a filter. And so everything we're viewing through that filter, we're kind of only seeing the things that fit the filter, okay? We can have actions that change our thoughts. I don't know if you guys have done this, but I go clean the house, and all of a sudden I think about all the other things I need to do to clean the house, right? Things like that. And feelings, so anyway, it goes all the way around. I don't know where I was in the process. But all of them can lead to the next one. Now, here's the deal. It's really hard to change feelings. Ready? Everybody do this. Ready? Go, and you're happy, right? It doesn't work. So what we can do, though, is we can work on our thoughts, and we can definitely work on our actions. Those are things that we can actively do. You know if you stood up or sit down, and you can work on changing your thoughts, right? We're supposed to take every thought captive to the Word of God, right? We're supposed to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. So it all comes back to thinking. So we can work on thinking, we can work on actions more than we can do feelings. I get too many things to juggle. All right, here's a pattern too. Here's another pattern. So basic information. We have triggering events. This is kind of how the emotional flow goes. Well, there'll be a triggering event. Next, there'll be a thought that you have from that event. From the thought, often there's an emotion that happens. Then there'll be an urge, and the urge is kind of what bridges the emotion to the action. There'll be an urge, and then there's an action you can take. So the example I often use for this is I'm driving down the road. Probably never happens to you guys. I'm driving down the road, and somebody comes, right? And they have to get by me on the left side, and they cut across me and take the exit, right? So they miss me by 3/4 of an inch, and my initial thought is, what a jerk, because we're in church and I don't use other words. So, what a jerk, right? My emotion is I'm angry, right? I'm really angry. My urge, I will confess to you, I have felt this way. I want to run that guy off the road, right? Get him out of here, right? And my action is not to run the guy off the road, because that's the one the cop will take you to jail for, right? The fact that I had the urge, the cop doesn't really matter, right? He doesn't care. So let's change it. There's a couple places we could change this. The triggering happens, the guy cuts me off. My thought is, what a jerk, but maybe I change my thought, right? My thought now is, you know what, that poor guy, he's probably trying to race to the hospital because his grandma's dying or his child is going into surgery, right? Now that changes my emotion. So now I'm thinking, oh, that poor guy, man, I feel compassion. I hope he gets there on time. I'll back off, let him get off. All right. The other thing I could do is when I feel the emotion of anger and have the urge to run the guy off the road, I can work on pausing, calming down, right? Trying to be in a better place so that I don't misbehave and get, I don't know, I wouldn't look good in orange, so going to prison is not my thing. What? Yeah, that's it. That's the only reason. Yeah, if they gave you blue suits, I'd be okay with prison, but I don't look good in orange. All right, so here's the deal. Here's the goals that we have for working with kids. The first goal we want them to learn how to have an awareness of the emotions that they have. And this is actually goals for all of us as human beings. So if we're going through this and you're looking going, shoot, I need number 3. Well, that's fine. You can start working on these for yourself too. We can work on them at any age. So we want to have kids have awareness of their emotions, right? We want them to own their emotions, so they are responsible for how they're feeling and how they're responding to them. They can learn how to ask for the needs that they have. We want to train them in how to respond in healthy ways. So not driving the car off the road, but instead maybe turning on the radio to some calm music, slowing down their driving, pulling over, cooling off, whatever they have to do, right? We wanted to learn how to relate with other people with the emotions, so they learn how to empathize with others and support them, right? So now we're going outside of the kid themselves. And then the number 5 one, I don't know that a lot of people talk about this, but we can train our emotions over time, right? If you learn that you don't need to get angry about something, you can do that. Matter of fact, how many of you guys took a speech class in high school or college or, I don't know, maybe grade school? Yeah, speech class, right? First speech, horrible, right? You stand up in front of everybody, you spit up on yourself, and you just want to survive that 30-second speech you have to give that felt like 2 hours, right? But by the end, you start to feel better. So we've trained the emotions that, this isn't a scary thing. We've gone through it. So those are the 5 things we want to do. Goal number 1 is to develop some awareness. We want to train kids to identify their feelings. So what we're going to do is we're going to name the feelings. I feel sad. I feel angry. I feel happy, right? We want to put words on those feelings. We want to create an environment where we can have conversations about the feelings that we're having, right? Do you guys notice that conversations about emotions are kind of hard to have, right? It's not easy. Emotions are messy. Usually people try and avoid them like the plague. If you want a social experiment, go inside the mall and sit down on a bench and start bawling and watch everybody walk away from you, right? Or get angry and start yelling and waving your arms. People avoid emotions, and especially in America, we're not very comfortable with them. So we want to get comfortable with them. Go ahead and have conversations. Set the table so that in your family and with friends and like that, it's always okay to talk about feelings, right? The table is always set. We can always open up that conversation. And the thread of conversation will go through your family. And then I mentioned we want to have statements. We want to teach the kids how to have statements. So I feel, and then you use an emotional word. So things like, I feel like you're an idiot, or I feel like my brother is dumb is not an emotion, right? Those aren't feeling words. I feel hurt, I feel angry, those are feeling words. So we want to train our kids how to talk with these things. So, all right. Action steps. So one of the things I believe in is if we're going to do something, we have to do something. If we're going to change something in our life, we need to change something in our life. And it comes down to action, because we can sit here and we can talk about some stuff. But we want to make sure that we leave, and I hope each of you can leave with something that you can change, something you can work on, right? That would be my goal. So here's some actions. One, let's get comfortable with emotions, okay? If you're not comfortable with that, maybe you start leaning into that. And I've got some things we'll talk about in a moment. We want to model healthy emotional relationship for our kids. It's really kind of hard if you're trying to tell your kid how to do something and you're not doing it, that doesn't make any sense, right? So I remember seeing a comedian, and he's like, son, never smoke cigarettes and don't ever drink, Well, that doesn't do any good. That doesn't do any good. So we want to model how to share feelings effectively. So that might mean coming home from work and you're frustrated, and instead of complaining about the guy at work that demands, the boss that now demands the report be in a month sooner or something like that, you can talk about your feelings. I feel frustrated with my boss. We have a new deadline. I feel hurt by this. I was surprised by this. But we're using feeling words, and it's about ourselves and the feeling, less about the details, right? We can use a feeling wheel. So a feeling wheel is a great tool. Go ahead and use a feeling wheel. I'll show you one in a minute. And we can create safe space. Again, having that conversation so we can talk about feelings. Make sense? You guys tracking with me? Good. So here's a feeling wheel. So when I'm looking at this thing, here's what I think works for describing this guy. If you go to the store and you're thinking about buying some paint, and they have that big color wheel at the store, you go in there and there's all the different reds, and there's burgundy, and there's maroon, and there's pink, and there's fire engine red, right? And that's the extent of my color knowledge. But those are colors, right? But if you go and you want to get burgundy paint because you're going to paint some room in your house, and the guy gives you pink paint, you're going to be mad. It's all red. It's just all red. Why are you upset, right? No. I want burgundy. So we want to be specific with our words about emotions the same way. The more that we increase our vocabulary with emotions, the more what's going to happen is we're going to be able to describe them more. We're going to increase our awareness. So vocabulary will increase that. It's kind of like you go to the doctor, right? And the doctor, he's looking at you and he's looking at your arm. He's got 472 different ways to describe a spot on your arm, right? And they all are Latin, and I don't understand any of them. But what happens is they've got all of these things, and they communicate a lot better about it for the next doctor. And he really dials in to which one it is. The same thing with emotions. We want to increase our emotional vocabulary. So that's a feeling wheel. If you're looking for one, they're all over the internet. You can Google emotion wheel or feeling wheel. They're easy to get. Okay, goal number 2. We want to have kids develop ownership. We want them to own their emotions, right? So here's our goals. Again, we're going to work on goals and actions. So the goals that we want to have the kids manage their own emotions. In order for that to happen, we need to have parents turn over that responsibility. Now, you don't do this when they're 2, but by the time they're 16 and 18 years old, we really want to have these turned over to them. We want them taking ownership, right? We want kids to learn how to ask for what they need, and we want them to build their own support system. So eventually, all of us have hopefully done this. We have people we can go to. If you're having a tough time, you're having a tough day, there's somebody that you can go to that you could talk about, right? You've built your support system. You know who the friends are you can talk to about what things, right? So getting kids to ask, I guess the first step is stop, right? How do you like that for a first step? Don't do something, but just stop fixing it. Stop fixing the problem. Usually women get this more than guys. Guys are fixers. Is there anybody that has ever heard of a situation where a wife says, stop fixing it, or I don't want you to fix it, I just want you to listen to me? Anybody ever heard? You guys never heard this before? You've heard that? Yeah, yeah. The men in the room are aware of it. The women are being really kind right now. I think that's what's going on, right? So yeah, a while ago, my wife, many years ago, my wife came. She said, "Stop fixing it. I just want you to listen to me." Okay. I was under the impression that if you're frustrated with something, I fix the problem goes away, the frustration goes away. That's guy logic, right? And that's not exactly how this is supposed to work. So we want to stop fixing it, and we validate the emotions. By the way, guys, I have discovered the secret of how to do this, okay? Don't ask my wife, but I don't implement it as well as I understand it. But we want to validate the emotions. We don't want to change the situation. We want to stay in the validation for time being. We want to ask what they need and encourage them to ask. One of the things we did with our kids is we trained them early on, like when you're feeling sad, Daddy, I'm feeling sad. Okay. When you're feeling sad, you ask for a hug. And we gave them real simple things. Sad, you ask for a hug. Angry, I don't remember what we told them for anger, but different feelings, we taught them, ask for this, get that, right? And learn how to feed your own need for the emotion that you're having. So you can train them. Yes, so here's the deal. Here's why we don't want to fix the problem. So if we come in and we slay the dragon, right? We can go slay the dragon. But we haven't conquered the fear for them. Now, obviously, if a dragon comes in your house, please slay the dragon. Don't let your kids get eaten by a dragon. Not too many dragons here in Eden Prairie, but we want to, so keep your kids safe. That's not what I'm saying. But when there's something they're afraid of, solving the thing that they're afraid of isn't what we need to do. What we need to do is let them wrestle with that emotion. Let them learn how to handle it. All right? So here's a little factoid for you. Emotions generally run in 20 to 30-minute cycles on average for people, so you might be longer or shorter. But if you'll notice, you have an emotion, and unless you work hard to keep that emotion up, it will naturally subside. Okay. You can keep it up, like if you get angry and you keep going around front, you keep rehearsing all of the reasons why you're angry, you can maintain a good anger for a long period of time. Matter of fact, you can ruin a relationship, and some people have lost. A while ago, I talked with a young gal, and her mom had not talked to her aunt, mom's sister, in like 30 years. They weren't even sure what it was that caused the problem, but they were both not going to give in. They were just set in their ways, right? And it's very sad. So we want the kids to conquer their fear. We don't necessarily want to slay the dragon. Removing the dragon, the fear remains, and something else is going to scare them, right? So here's the trick, guys. There's validation and there's change, right? There's this seesaw. You can only do one at a time. When we're in validation, do you guys know what a validation means? Are you guys familiar with what validation is? All right. Validation is when I'm validating somebody, basically what I'm doing is I'm accepting them for who they are. I'm accepting the position that they're in, the emotions that they have. It's a position of acceptance. We're staying there. We're not changing anything, right? If a person is angry or sad and I'm trying to change it, I'm kind of not accepting of their emotion, right? So it becomes invalidating, which is what we don't want to do, right? So does that kind of give you a quick idea? So we want to stay in validation. What validations does is it accepts them in the position they're at. And then we will move over to change, and I'm going to give you the trick here. So there's a story. Our youngest daughter, petite little girl with gigantic emotions. I'm not sure how all those feelings fit inside that tiny little body. She was just adorable. She's still adorable. She's 18 now, and she's bigger, and not the same kind of adorable, I guess. But she came running in. I'm sitting in the family room. I'm minding my own business. I'm not doing anything wrong. Minding my own business, and she comes running in. Daddy, it's terrible. I can't. Sorry. It takes a little bit to communicate with the little one when she's probably 3 or 4 at the time. Comes in. It's terrible. I'm never gonna sleep again. I lost my blanket. I don't know where it is. And so this time I actually happened to do it right. Normally I screw this up. Because in my head, I thought, it's just a stupid blanket. And yes, you're going to fall asleep again because it's impossible to live your whole life and never sleep. Sooner or later, you're going to fall asleep. It's not that big a deal. And when you're an adult, you're not going to care about the blanket anyway, so just get over it. It's not a big deal, right? I didn't say those things, so that was the first step, right? Yeah. I can be taught. So, so I just held her, and I had to translate in my head, right? So blankets, I gave them up. I don't really use blankets. It's been at least a few weeks now. So I don't worry about blankets. But I had to think, what would I be distraught about if I didn't have it? Phone, wallet, or keys, right? One of those three, oh yeah, that could be end of the world stuff right there, right? So I'm sitting here, I'm holding on to her, and I had to translate in my head, and I thought, okay, now this is how I would feel if I lost one of those. And I said to her, it's really hard. It's scary when you lose something that's so important to you. You really like that blanket, don't you? Yeah, it's terrible, it's terrible, it's terrible. And we sat, and I held her, I gave her hugs, and after a little bit, she looks at me, and she goes, Daddy. I said, what? Do you think it's under my bed? And I said, I don't know. And I still didn't bite. So guys, you still wait. You hold back in the weeds, right? Wait a little longer. And then she said, Daddy, would you help me go look for it? I said, sure. So now she's ready to move to change, right? So I said, sure, I'll help you go look for it. So you know how it is when they grab their hand around your finger, and she led me into the room, and 10 seconds later we found the blanket. It had gone between the wall and the bed. You know how that happens, right? Every kid loses a blankie that way, right? So let me ask you this. Think about that story. Think about that little girl. She was going to get her blankie back. But what did she get by me being calm, validating, staying, not trying to change it? What did she get? She got time with her daddy, right? She got connection. She got me loving her, connecting with her, caring for her. She also had the privilege of dealing with her own emotions. She had to go through the cycle and take care of them, right? So guys, this is the key. I know there's only a few of us in the room. See, now, next time I talk, you ladies are all going to bring your husbands, right? So here's the key. We want to wait until the other person is ready for the change, and you listen to the language, right? Can you help me fix it? What can we do about this? What would you suggest? Those are all questions, right? And if you're not sure, you can always say, well, would you like my help? So ask permission first. If they say no, they don't want your help, right? So that's the blanket story, and that's validation and change and how to know the difference. All right. Now we got to train kids how to respond to their emotions. And hopefully all of us have got this at some degree. So the goals here, the ability to choose how to respond. Notice the way the word is choose, right? We want to have a choice in there. And it's responding, not reacting. There's a variety of skills that we can use to help, and we'll go through a couple of those. And then what we really want to do is we want to learn how to prevent situations that bring about those strong emotions. So I've worked a little bit with individuals and addiction, okay? And so I would use alcoholism as an example. And the time for the guy who's the alcoholic to choose not to have the beer at the bar is not when he's sitting at the bar, right? That's hard. Don't go to the bar, right? That seems logical, right? So we back up. Well, don't go to the parking lot. And then I would even back them up even further. I'll make sure I don't walk off the stage. Back them up a little further and say, don't even drive down that street, because then you might see your buddy Joe's truck. And then what the heck? You haven't seen Joe in such a long time. You might as well go say hi to him. And then pretty soon you're in a bar, and you might as well have a beer when you're in a bar, right? So we want to back up, and we want to avoid situations that lead to the problems. All right. So actions. We're going to train on some basic emotional regulation tools, right? And I'm going to give you some in a minute. We want to debrief. So one of the things that happens is we do something, and you guys do this in life, right? you do something, you take a vacation, and man, that didn't work out. Well, next time, let's not stay at thus and such a hotel, or let's not fly this airline, or whatever it is. You debrief, you talk about what you're going to do next time so you don't run into the same problem. We're going to continue to encourage and validate. That's going to be a theme in your life if you're a parent. And you really want to live with grace. They're going to make mistakes. If they're going to make mistakes, it's okay to make mistakes. Do we learn from them, right? We want to teach them to apologize, but they need to learn from their mistakes. All right, so here's some tools for emotions. And I'm thinking I probably should have printed up something so you guys could have a list. The first step, let's just take a deep breath. How many of you guys have been in a situation and just taking a deep breath cools you down just a second, just a little pause, and you can make a better decision, right? Does that make sense? You guys ever seen that? We need to train our kids that, you know what, they don't come out of the womb knowing any of this stuff. We have to train them. That's why God gave kids parents, right? And then one thing, this is my practice of one thing. Everybody should have a one thing, okay? Now yours can be different than mine, but for me, when I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm feeling confused, like you ever sat at the computer and you're working on stuff and it's like, well, what's the next thing I need to do? Shoot, I don't know what I'm doing, right? Well, I have one thing that I do. When I'm angry, I have one thing that I do, right? And they're all the same thing. So for me, the one thing I do is I get up and I go for a walk. I just go for a walk. I found that if I move my body, it helps. It probably gets me out of the situation. So if I'm angry at a kid, I'm trying to figure out the next thing to do, and I have 47 things in my brain that I need to do next. I'm feeling discouraged. Whatever it is, I just get up and go for a walk. It does not solve the problem, but it starts me moving in the right direction, right? Moving your body, so this is kind of where the walk fits in. Moving your body, changing your location, that can help with emotions, teaching your kids to do that. Practicing a do-over, okay? So here's what a do-over is. Is there any musicians in the room? Wow, you guys are an untalented group. All right, any sports people, right? Wow, we're really, okay. Okay, so pretend like you're a musician who plays sports. I guess, I don't know. So in music and in sports and probably in everything else in life, when we do something wrong, we don't stop, right? The piano player that plays the song and they play the wrong note. They don't just leave it there. They play it right several times after that because they're building the muscle memory to go ahead and do it correctly normally, right? Same thing with sports. You throw the ball the wrong way, you got to go back and do it 10 more times or something. So you build in the muscle memory so that you know what you're doing and you do it more naturally, okay? So that's what we want to do with kids. So as an example, one of my kids many years ago, she was in our kitchen and I said something to her and she kind of said something that felt disrespectful to me. And she was leaving the room and I said, wait, time out. That didn't feel respectful to me. All right. Again, this is one of the 6 examples of times I've actually done things right. So just so you know, I use them all up in the first talk. Second talk's not so good. So I said, let's back up. Let's try this again, okay? And as soon as I said that, she was like, oh, yeah, I didn't mean to make it disrespectful. So I didn't know if she was trying to be disrespectful, but in her case, she didn't realize it was disrespectful. So I had her back up. She said it again. It was more respectful. It wasn't perfect, but I was, thank you. Thank you very much. That feels more respectful. And she has gotten really good. She has a lot of emotions as well. All of our kids have emotions. Some of them are better at them than others. Some of them have bigger ones than others. But she has gotten really good at having difficult emotions and then communicating respectfully even when she's got difficult emotions. And I think that was kind of the start of that, right? So that's the do-over. ICE, this is one that I work with a lot of people that have had pretty intense emotional problems, and we would use this as an example. This is the one that'll take, if the emotions are at a 9 or 10 on a 10-point scale, this will help bring them down maybe to a 7, okay? It doesn't solve it, but it brings you back into high-level orbit so you can actually try and do something different. So here's what ice is. You know those soft, if you hurt your knee, you know that soft pack that you'd put on your knee to cool it down? You take that and you put that on the mask of the face, okay? Now wrap it in a towel. We don't want to get frostbite. We can get frostbite from ice. Wrap it in a towel, you put that on there, and within a minute, it starts to cool down. Something about it cools down the base part of the brain where the emotions are inflamed, okay? Once we cool that down, you have more access to the prefrontal cortex, so you can actually start thinking again, which helps you to figure out the next step. But this is amazing. I've seen this work for people who, whether they wanted to or not, it just works. This isn't a skill. The breathing at the beginning, that's sort of a skill. If you breathe in correctly, you can make yourself more anxious because we're all breathing. It's not like you've been holding your breath this whole time, right? So, but the ice will work no matter what. So ice is really, so have those soft packs available. Give them to our kid. What we started doing this with our family, and it was really kind of interesting. The kids would start having these emotions, and another kid would walk over to the fridge, and they'd go get the ice pack, and they'd just hand it to them, and they'd put it on their face. Nobody had to say anything anymore. And they would be like, Dad, that really helps. That's really good. So that's a really good tool. A lot of therapists don't even know about this, and I'm not sure why, but it's a really neat deal. I don't know why it works. I don't know the science. I just have watched it, and I also don't know why my car runs, but I put the key in and I drive places. So I don't need to understand things. Another one is to take care of yourself, right? Anybody ever felt hangry before? Any of you guys, right? Anybody get tired, you get cranky, right? If you don't move around, get some exercise, you're probably lethargic. If you're feeling a little ill, it's probably not the time to try and handle your emotions. All those things take down our ability to manage our emotions well. So we want to take care of ourselves, right? So we want to teach our kids to do that too. So our kids, man, I'm having a tough morning. Oh, okay, what's going on? Well, probably didn't eat any protein this morning. Okay, well, now you know, right? So it's kind of nice. You want to teach them to self-diagnose and figure out the solution. All right, checking the facts. That one, I have a diagram for. And we're going to call it verifying the facts because I think checking the facts is somebody's copyrighted thing, so I forgot to change it. But remember, we talked about that, the 5 steps in the flow. These are the last 2, is you have the emotion, and then you have the urge. And then we're going to talk about, we have the urge, we're going to verify the facts. We're going to see what's going on. So imagine, if you will, that you're sitting in this room. That's not too hard to imagine. But you have an intense fear that grips you, and you have the urge to run out of the room. Should you do that? This is audience participation. Who says yes? Who says no? Okay. Who didn't raise their hands? Okay. Okay. Yes, very good. Yes, so the people that said either yes or no, you're wrong, because you don't know the facts right now, right? So we need to get the facts. Okay. So, for instance, let's say that you have arachnophobia, you have a fear of spiders, and a spider just came down right in front of you, right? You don't need to leave the room, right? Because it's not a threat to you. We live in Minnesota. There are no poisonous spiders here yet. But global warming, we have the potential soon. Who knows? But so anyway, you don't need to leave the room, right? You can you want to do the opposite. It doesn't fit the facts, so you do the opposite action. So rather than running out of the room, you approach. You get the spider, grab it on the thread, and stomp on it, and it's gone, right? Now, how about we check the facts, but this scenario, a lion just walked in the room. I know, I have crazy ideas. Lions, dragons, and like that. Just so you know, before anybody gets too scared and runs away, we have not had a lion loose in Eden Prairie, to my knowledge, and not here at Wooddale, right? So we're probably safe from the lion, but hypothetically, a lion walks in the room. Now, it fits the facts, right? Getting out of here is pretty good. Matter of fact, all you have to do is not be the last one out of the room, right? So just outrun Dan and you're okay. And then we move to problem solving. So the problem solving is probably a very, very fast process of get the heck out of here, right? Let's get out of here. Let's escape. So that's how the checking the facts, the verifying the facts really works, okay? We want to know the urge that we have, does it fit? Is it something we should act on, or is it the opposite of what we need to do? Make sense? All right. And then the last two goals, because time is short, I kind of figured time would be short. Last two goals, we want to teach our kids to empathize with others, right? This is where it's getting outside of them, right? We want to teach them to be good in the community, be able to understand, relate to others' emotions, be able to support them, care for other people, right? So a couple ways we can do this. Number one, we can model it for them, right? So us going ahead and interacting with other people, loving them, caring for them, supporting them, helping them with difficult emotions, not being afraid of them, being comfortable with uncomfortable, right? We can also do things with stories. So one of the things we started doing is we'd watch a movie and there'd be a character in the movie. And we'd say, well, what do you think that character felt like? How do you think they felt? What happened when this person did that? That wasn't very good, was it? And then the other person, they helped them better. Okay, and so you can do this from quite young, the stories that you read at night. You can use these as examples, right? What would you do if you came across somebody that was feeling like that? Or you see somebody crying because they were hurt, a friend had said something mean to them. What would something you could do, right? So you're kind of pre-programming them to be ready for situations, right? And then you give them the skills. So you talk through those things and you say, yeah, that is helpful. Giving them a hug, right? Hugs fix a lot of things. We don't do those, we're in Minnesota, but hugs are good, right? All right, the last one is training our emotions. Over time, we really want to get our emotions trained. So we start getting the emotions more lined up. I kind of think of this as calibrating your emotions, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar, but if you have a tool, say a thermometer on an oven, and it says it's 250 degrees, but it's actually 200 degrees, the cake ain't gonna work very well, right? So we want the thermometer to be reading accurately. So we want to respond, we want to have our emotions reflect accurately what's going on in the world around us. Be able to read that more effectively, right? So over time, here's some things we could do. We want to get them to better fit the situation. We can debrief on difficult situations. So they got scared about something. We can back up and talk about, okay, so what were the things that scared you? What was the real threat? Was there something that was going to actually hurt you? You just had a lot of fear. Okay, so how can you handle the fear, right? Practicing apologies. Apologies are great. Because, I found that so first of all, my mouth can get shot off very quickly. I have a sharp tongue, and early on it was terrible. God has worked a lot on getting my tongue to be not such a vile weapon. And part of it was I had to apologize. Well, you apologize, and after a while you're like, man, I don't like this apology thing. I'm going to quit shooting my mouth off, right? I don't want to do that. You can also talk through scenarios and come up with ideas of what you would do to go ahead and manage your emotions so you're planning ahead again. All right. I'm trying to remember. So one of the things I want to encourage you guys, all right, so how many of you are parents right now? Actively parents, okay? Good. How many of you have kids that are in tweens and teens, okay? Any of you have little kids? You got little kids too? Wow, we got a good mix. So there's different support groups. Are you guys familiar with all the different options you have here at Wooddale? There are lots of options. If you need to get connected, so I ran a Parents of Teens group for a couple of years at Grace, and then for space constraints we couldn't continue it. But I was getting tired, and all the other leaders had quit, so it was time. But a Parents of Teens and Tweens class looks like that would be a great option. You need support. Parents with young families, that's a great time to have support. Sometimes you can swap babysitting, so you can get a night out. It doesn't cost you. I don't know if you guys have ever done that kind of thing. Moms Connect groups, and then there's a lot of other life groups that you guys have that will address parenting issues. So get connected. One of the things I will say, don't do parenting on your own. Parenting is a team sport, and usually people think parents, mom and dad working together, or however the blended family works, but the parents working together. But really, it's a team sport, and it's bigger than that, right? A community is helpful when you're raising your kids. You need that support. All right, this is my information if you're interested. And there's cards on the table as well. And last, we've got time for questions. And here's what I would encourage you guys. Come up with one thing you're going to do differently, or one thing that can be a takeaway for you, right? I'm sorry, cards are they're on one table. Sorry, yes. So you can grab those. Yeah, all of my friends are sitting at that table, so. So any questions, comments, or snide remarks from anybody?
And if you do, I guess that works. If you do, because we're recording, and I'll just bring the question, if you don't mind.
So we do practice the do-over, or
Yeah.
we call it, can we start over?
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
Is there a limit to that? Because it seems like it comes up a lot.
So a limit,
Like how to, it seems like it can be a daily thing,
Okay.
where my daughter will be like, can we start over? Because of, if there was an outburst or something,
Okay.
behavior-wise. How often I don't like to say the normal, but if it's throughout the day a lot, is
Okay.
there a limit to that? How often do you do the do-overs?
I don't know that there's a hard and fast limit. How old is your daughter or your kids? 12 years old? Okay. I don't know that there's a limit. I guess what I would say is the limit comes to when you start seeing the kid roll their eyes, or it's this isn't effective, right? So one kid might be able to do this 10 times a day, and another kid, it's nope, 2 times, and this is getting ridiculous. So we want it to be effective. We don't want them to get tired of it. And then if it's different times, the one thing I was thinking about is when you do a do-over, don't do a do-over again and again. It's not like soccer practice where go hit the ball 10 more times to get into the net. Let's do it once, and hopefully there's some improvement, and then let it go, right? Because they'll make a micro step, but if we keep doing micro steps, it'll gradually get better, right? And then conversation around the do-over too. So making sure you're talking about, well, this is what is it that, why are we doing it over, right? Was it disrespectful? Was it a poor way to respond to anger? So if you're doing, I guess I would say too, if you're doing do-overs and you see yourself repeating a lot, it's probably the kid is not really understanding, right? So it's probably good to sit down. When you do sit down with kids and you talk about things like this, talk about it when it's not in the moment. So the best parenting happens not in the moment where the parenting has gone wrong, right? So the kid is throwing a temper tantrum. This is not the time to give them a dissertation on why we don't do temper tantrums at age 2, right? We wait till they're done, try and manage the situation, try and cause as little damage as possible, and then we can have a conversation, like the next day maybe, right, when it's calm. So does that kind of help with some of those things? Okay, good. I do like the do-over. You guys are doing a good job. 12 is rough. That's not an easy age. But good news, great news for you. It won't be long and she'll be a teenager. So you got something to look forward to, right? So, and then it's all easy, right? It's never easy. You got to go.
Any others?
I think I'm mostly looking for encouragement because we do try to do these things, and I'm learning new things that we can do, but being around family members, especially kind of older generations, especially kind of male family members who, when we're validating feelings, especially of our young boys, there's kind of a roll of the eyes. What are you doing? Are they going? And it makes me question my own parenting. Am I doing this right? Are they going to be tough? Are they going to be able to be in our society where people aren't going to validate their feelings very often? So I'm left kind of coming away from our family vacations wondering, what do I do? Like, is this the right way? And are my boys going to be strong? And then they also see their grandparents not giving them the kind of love and affirmation that we give them. So
Right.
it's just a difficult.
It is, and it's really hard. And generations think differently about this. So a couple of things. One, yes, you're doing the right thing. One of the things that I want to encourage you guys as parents, we need to do this in our lives anyway. We need to know why we're doing what we're doing, and we need to have our standard figured out. So the reason why I want to be a good dad, I'm going to tell you, has nothing to do with whether my kids turn out, right? That's not why I need to be a good dad. I need to be a good dad because someday I'm going to stand before the king and I'm going to give an account of how I've been as a dad. Now that's not changing. So the problem is if I'm trying to be a good dad for my kids do not know what a good dad is. They've never been a dad. They don't have any experience. They don't know what a good mom is. So us learning how this is where we live according to what God's standard is. And so helping to anchor that in your heart so that you're not swayed by what somebody else thinks. Because the reality is, as much as they're probably wonderful people, and they probably love you a lot, they don't know, and they're not you. And this is God's call on your life and your relationship with God and how to live that out, right? So number one, gain that confidence. You are doing a good job, right? I've never seen a parent. I've met some pretty messed up parents. I've worked with some pretty messed up families. I've never seen a parent that didn't have a good motivation. They loved their kids. They did some wacky things. They did some very, very destructive things, but they all thought they were doing good. And so I often tell people, your parents, they did the best they could with what they had to work with, right? So this other generation, they don't have all the data. They're not responsible. God has placed you in charge of your kids. Number two, and we didn't really cover this. Yes, you want to continue to validate your kids. You want to continue to do that. And the goal is not that it ends there. The goal is that they learn how to self-validate, right? They learn how to say, yeah, I'm angry right now. Okay, so what am I angry about? It's reasonable that I'm angry, and I want to behave myself. I'm going to act appropriately, right? So your kids will be stronger because they will have a good relationship with their emotions and their feelings because of that. So good job. Yeah, I'm sorry. It is hard it's hard when grandparents try and parent, and I try and convince grandparents, your job is to sugar them up and send them home, man. You're not supposed to be disciplining them, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. And kick them back into place. Say, hey, go talk to your mom about that. Go talk to your dad about that. That's not my job. I'm retired from the active parenting role, right? I don't have to parent little kids anymore. So cool. Good. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to give you a quick, what was the story I was thinking about? Dang it. I have this thing. I have a brain that's doesn't always work all the time.
While it's kicking back in, I've got one.
Yeah.
Just the other day, I was coming out of Costco, and there was a young mom there and had the sweet little baby, and she was crying, and you could see mom was kind of getting uptight, but she was being a mom. And as I was pulling out, I saw her in her car, and the little one was there. I said, hey, you know what? You're doing a great job, Mom.
Yeah.
Thanks for loving your little daughter. She goes, really? I said, yeah, you're really doing a great job. Keep it up. You're love your daughter, enjoy her. She's going to do all these things. And bless her heart, she just started crying. And just said, you saw that? I said, yeah, I saw it. And I just wanted you to know. Makes their day. And because everybody always wondered, am I doing the right thing? You got a little baby who's crying. Babies cry. But she's there with you and loading it and doing all the different things. So just noticing.
Yeah.
And then sharing that you notice. Not in a weird way. It's, what are you doing, old man? No, I saw the setting that was going on.
Yeah.
And encourage.
Yeah, that reminds me. So one of the things that, and this kind of fits for you, have you guys ever heard of mom shame? Do you know what mom shame is? Every mom, honestly, I have met a lot of women, a lot of moms, and worked with a lot of families. I think it's universal. I think it's fairly universal that moms struggle. It's different than dads. Dads don't struggle with dad shame. We don't have that as a term. Mom shame. Every mom is worried that, it seems like they're worried, I'm going to screw up my kids. They're going to be mass murderers, or whatever it is, right? And every little thing they put under the microscope, and they're worried about it. And part of that is, just relax. Because God's got your kids. He's taking care of them more than you are. And this helps me a lot. I think, man, I see my limitations. I see my flaws. I worry that they carry over to my kids. But then I remember God loves them more than I do, right? You guys realize that? You know how much God loves your kids, right? And he knows what's better for them than I do. I have no idea. I'm just trying to get to the end of the day sometimes, right? He has a plan. He's got it figured out. So your job is just to play the role you got, play the hand you're dealt, and God will take care of the rest. And so having that shame, if we can kind of convince ourselves and realize that it's not shame, it's a great honor to have children, right? And God's going to fill the gaps. When we first had our first daughter, I remember, first of all, there's that experience. Every guy doesn't realize he knows how to cry until he has a daughter, right? Or kid, first kid. And I'm sitting there bawling in the room, birthing room. And then I went through this phase of like, oh my goodness, what if I screw up my kid? Man, I can't do this right. And then we had a couple that kind of took us in. And basically what would happen is we'd go eat at their house because we needed a break from the baby. And she needed to get her baby fix. So it was a great relationship. We were hungry and we were tired and she needed a baby fix. So he would make dinner, she'd hold the baby, and we would like, ah. And she told me her story. Her dad had moved around. Her dad had a pretty substantial mental health disorder. Everything she told me is like, this is like the antithesis of being a good dad. This is the absolute opposite. And then I looked at her, and she was such a magnificent, amazing person. I was like, wow. So here's my logic. If a guy can do it that bad, and God can turn this out, I'm not going to be that bad. I'm pretty sure I can be better than that. So I might be here, but God can cover the gaps. So God makes the difference, right? He's really the one that fills those gaps and fills those needs for us. So, cool.
Amen. And we'll leave it there. Thanks for coming today. And feel free to talk with Ray. And hope to see you next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.